temperature is very good. As you know, even though there's a little bit of a slowdown in the US market, it's still doing very well. And we're still in the bull market phase. Europe is looking very good. Japan is looking very good. And emerging markets are looking very, very good, because since the beginning of this year, emerging markets have been outperforming the rest of the world. The triggers are really about growth. Economic growth is high in emerging markets. As you know, the biggest countries in terms of population, China and India, are growing at 6 and 7%, which is very high growth. For emerging markets generally, the average growth, even some of the countries that are not growing at all, the average is 4% for, calculating all of these countries. And of course, for developed countries, it's about 1.5% average. People began to realize that they were severely underweight in emerging markets. Therefore, they had to do something to increase the weighting. Also, seeing that the US market was slowing down, they realized that they had to do something. The weighting should be at least 30%, because emerging markets now represent 30% of the total world capitalization. So now people are beginning to build up to that. And I think that's the main reason why we've seen this upsurge. There's a shift towards the internet-related companies. So if you look at the emerging markets index, for example, there's been a big growth in the weighting in internet or technology companies. So that includes software companies, hardware companies, and particularly internet companies. Of course, the commodity weighting has gone down in the index. However, it's important to remember that commodities are not going out of style. There's still going to be a demand for commodities going forward. And many people will look at the value of exports or imports of various commodities, and they forget that value depends on, of course, the individual price of the commodity. But if you look at the actual quantities, you'll see that iron ore imports into China continue to rise, oil imports into China continue to rise, and that's true of other countries as well. Yeah, there's a great and growing interest in frontier markets for the reason that these countries are growing faster, even faster than emerging markets generally. So if you look at the 10 fastest growing countries in the world, 8 of those are frontier. And the 2 others are China and India. So there's an incredible interest in frontier now, and that's a growing interest. Brazil is now going through a revolution. They've had the so-called Lava Jato scandal, the car wash scandal, where the corrupt politicians were channeling money through a car wash in Brasilia, the capital, and you're talking billions of dollars in corruption. And a lot of the politicians are implicated, including the former president, President Lula and Rousseff, who now stepped down, and even the current president, Temer, is implicated. So the country is going through an incredible change in the sense that reform movement are moving at a very fast pace. And that's very good news for investors, because it means that the economy will be working much more efficiently. The countries in the world are growing. There's reform in the air. The internet is spreading wide. 1 billion smartphones are being sold. That means people have more information. They can learn more. So the outlook's very good. We're at the brightest period of mankind's history.